Me Time and Murder is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Oh, well, big surprise.
Tres, what are you drinking?
Today I'm changing it up again. I've got, well, it's another pucka, as always. Another pucka tea. It's turmeric active, an invigorating blend of finest organic turmeric, ginger, and galangal.
Today I am drinking just regular Chinese tea. It's a popular brand over here called Rickshaw.
Oh, that's a nice name.
It's the Chinese, or not it's the jasmine tea.
Oh, yes, lovely.
So it's very nice. And what face mask are you wearing?
I have pretty basic Origins. I think you know that brand. Clear Improvement Active Charcoal Mask to clear pores. It's just pretty basic bitch charcoal mask.
I am using my Clinique Moisture Surge. It's not really a mask, is it? I use it so often and my skin always looks, I don't know, it just looks good afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got my mask on. Just got a little clay face going on. All right, so let's get into it. Trezzy, have you
Mhm.
heard about the Grindr Killer?
Oh god, no. It sounds really scary.
Yeah, I had never heard of it
No.
before. So here we go.
Okay.
Do you know what Grindr we're talking about?
I'm assuming the app.
Yes.
A little bit like what happens with Craigslist, unfortunately, happened.
Grindr is a dating app,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all I have to say about Grindr.
Yeah.
I've never been on it. I don't know
I
how
have
it works.
seen the application.
I think I've just seen the app on the screen. I've never even seen it open.
I've seen it open. It looks similar to Tinder. Again, I've just seen that on a screen. I've no experience. I would just assume that they work the same,
It's
the
not
different
like,
audience,
yeah, it's a
different
different,
pool.
yeah, yeah. But it's like it's not really for looking for serious
I
relationships.
don't think so. I don't. I think it's a hookup. I mean, that's the reputation I think it has. Whether it was supposed to be that from the get go, I don't know. And maybe some people do go on for something more, but
Tinder is sort of like for sort of half hookups, half dating
it's
sort
a
of
bit
thing.
both. Yeah.
There's more serious ones like, the Plenty of Fish, and
Yes.
over here we have like, is it bagels and beans or coffee and bagels? I don't
Oh,
know.
that's kind of cute.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but it's even more serious. It's like you are looking to settle down. He was not on beans and bagels or whatever it's called.
It can't be beans and bagels.
No, I don't. Oh, what? Coffee and bagels?
Coffee and bagels makes sense because it's like you're going on a little date,
I don't think it is. I think it's weird. Coffee, bagel,
Oh, it is. No, it is. Coffee meets
coffee
bagels.
meets bagel.
Oh, so cute. Do coffees and bagels go really well together or something?
Do they though?
They're not synonymous with each other. It's like donuts and
Right,
bagels, is it not? Or
right.
donuts and coffee. Donuts and
Bagel.
bagels, just carb on carb.
Today we're going to be talking about Stephen Port,
Okay.
born on the 22nd of February,
Mm-hmm.
1975. Growing up, Stephen was described as being a loner, and he was often bullied at school. He came out as gay in his mid-20s, and he lived alone in a flat in Barking, London, and worked as a chef at a stagecoach bus depot.
Okay. Chef is never good. There's a lot of boiling emotions there. Yeah.
Boiling, chopping, there's simmering,
Yeah.
there's steaming.
It's pressure cooker.
His neighbor described him as having a peculiar childlike personality,
Hmm.
exhibiting odd behavior as a grown man, such as playing with children's toys.
Okay.
He would sit watching cartoons and visit children's shops alone
Oh
to
no.
buy himself toys,
Oh
some
god.
of which were placed looking over his bed.
Oh, was he deprived as a child of things like that, I wonder?
I have not included his background. His
Yeah, his
background is
upbringing.
his upbringing is very normal.
Yeah.
It was
Hmm.
it was boring, and I was like, no, this is
Yeah.
not
Sounds like there was a
interesting.
want, a want
Yeah, I
there,
think that like the mom was like a teacher or something, and
Hmm.
the dad was like a bus driver or something. I'm not too sure, but
Okay,
it was
so
like
this is just him being weird then.
just like yeah, it's just normal working class family.
Hmm.
Port joined, left, and rejoined various social networks, sometimes using different names alongside his own picture, or even creating entirely fictitious identities.
Oh, catfish vibes. Okay, he's got an online persona thing going on here.
False claims about his background, including that he graduated from Oxford University and served in the Royal Navy.
Oh, he's like Gatsby.
He's like,
Claiming all the bravery.
quite right, old sport.
Yeah.
He used dating sites to seek out sexual encounters, particularly with youthful-looking men, typically in their teens and early 20s, known as
Oh, yes, there is a word. Uh,
twinks.
twigs. Okay, I was never going to get
Twinks!
that.
Twinks!
Oh, twinks.
Twigs.
Twinks.
Twinks!
Twinks.
Some boyfriends who were highly vulnerable men became prostitutes while in volatile relationships with Port.
Oh,
Yeah, I know we really jumped there, didn't
oh,
we?
okay. So he had boyfriends
Mm-hmm.
that became prostitutes because of him, or what?
Yeah. So he would go on like not Tinder, Grinder,
Mm-hmm.
and this site called like Fit Lads, and I know.
So on the nose. Oh my god.
I wonder what this is about. And he would just like he would like look for like insecure, vulnerable
Mhm.
men, and
Mhm.
he would like badger them into being sex workers. Boyfriends were advertised on escort sites with Port's phone number as the contact. In early 2012, a student in his late teens spent a night with Port after they met on Grindr. Grindr?
Yeah, it's
Grinder.
like you just made up a new app. It's like Tinder and Grindr
Oh,
together.
it
Grindr.
is like Tinder and Grinder.
Yeah.
Grinder.
Grindr. Just everybody come on it. Everybody is welcome.
His first impressions after being collected at Barking Station was that Port was quite polite, friendly, nothing that would ring any alarm bells to me. At the flat, Port put on an animated film and offered a small glass of red wine that tasted bitter, which I attributed to being cheap. After drinking the wine, the student noticed a sludge in the bottom of the glass.
No.
He quickly felt very dizzy and tired. Port suggested he go lie down in the bedroom, which he did alone and immediately fell asleep until he woke up.
Oh god.
Port was raping him. After about a
Oh
minute, he
god.
fell unconscious again. He woke in the morning feeling disorientated. Port drove him to the station and spoke as if nothing had happened. The man was too scared to say anything about the previous night.
That's awful. It just makes me really angry because can't you just be normal and just have a normal encounter? Like you have the person in your apartment. You don't need to date rape that, like the date rape is clearly part of his turn on. Just annoys me.
So we're jumping to 2014,
Okay, so that was
right?
2012, so it's 2 years later.
2 years later,
Okay.
and it's another guy who has came forward. Another man, a Muslim in his early 20s who had never consumed alcohol or drugs,
Oh,
met Port
bless.
and went back to his flat on 5 occasions. And on the fifth occasion, Port plied him with drugs.
Mm.
Port gave the man poppers, which is legal,
Mm-hmm.
but after a couple of minutes, the young man fell asleep. When he woke, Port gave him a glass of clear liquid, saying it was water.
Oh, God.
As soon as I drank it, I went unconscious, the young man said.
Oh,
The
no.
next thing I remember, I was on the floor screaming and shouting. It was like I was going mad.
Oh,
The
God.
man's underwear had been removed. Panic set in, so Port helped him to the Barking station. He was kind of dragging me along and holding me up. Soon the police and an ambulance was called. But the young Muslim man did not want to involve the police out of fear his parents would discover his sexuality.
Mm. It's awful.
Port was worried and jittery, according to the police at the scene. He claimed the young man had arrived at his flat in that state and he was merely taking him home. As there was no allegations of an offence, both men were allowed to leave. So it's June 2014. It is just after the time he assaulted the Muslim man. Anthony Walgate was studying to be a fashion designer at the University of Middlesex. At 4:20 on Thursday, the 19th of June 2014, the ambulance service received a call to report an incident on Cook Street, Barking. There's a young boy, looks like he's collapsed outside. He could have had a seizure or something, or just drunk, the caller said. Paramedics and police officers found a young man sitting against a wall. He was dead.
Oh, God.
His bag held a dark brown bottle containing a small amount of liquid, and his mobile phone was missing. There were no signs of struggle or injury, but the police noticed that the man's top was pulled up as if he'd been dragged. The nearest CCTV camera on a roundabout was found to be faulty.
Ah,
Police found the 999 call had been made by Stephen Port. After meeting his flatmate outside, police entered to find Port asleep in his bed. So he called the police and then went to bed.
why did he do that?
Port told police he had come home at 4 a.m. after a night shift to find a man lying in front of his door and tried to rouse him by slapping his face. He said the man made a gurgling noise. Propping the man against a wall, he called an ambulance before going indoors and falling asleep. The student had been occasionally escorting since 2012. Taking usual precautions, he had told his friends about a job in Barking and shown them a picture of the man he was going to meet. When officers discovered the man was Port, they arrested him on the 26th of June on suspicion of perverting the course of justice, lies in his statement, and he was suspected of taking Walgate's phone.
Mm-hmm.
After 2 days of interviews, Port asked detectives, "Can't I just say for the scenario, if it was an accident and if he did have a fit in my place, is that still my fault?" Port eventually changed his story to this, saying Walgate was on drugs and after having sex twice, went to sleep in his clothes and shoes, so Port went to bed too. Port then went to work the next day, came back, and Walgate was still there asleep. So Port got into bed. He could feel that Walgate was rigid. Panicked, he dragged his body outside and
Oh,
called the police, said that he found him like that. Police searched Port's flat and seized a laptop computer. Police did not examine the computer seized from Stephen Port. If they had, they would have found alarming evidence. Port assessed Walgate's escort profile, and within minutes, he had conducted a series of searches on Google and pornography websites. A few of the searches he used that day were sleeping boy, unconscious boys, drugged and rape, taking date rape drug, gay teen knocked out raped, and guy raped and tortured young nude boy.
okay.
Walgate's blood and urine sample showed levels of the drug GHB associated with fatal overdoses. The case was never treated as a murder.
What?
Port made bail. On the morning of August 28, 2014, while walking her dog, Barbara Denham found the body of a young man in an upright position in the southwest corner of St. Margaret's graveyard. It was the body of 22-year-old Gabriel Kovari. Just over 3 weeks later, on the 20th of September, Denham was again walking her dog and found another body on the same spot. It was Daniel Whitworth, 21. While on bail for perverting the course of justice, Stephen Port had killed both men.
Oh my God.
So Gabriel Kovari was Slovakian, who came to London in spring 2014. He struggled to find a stable place to live until he met John Pape. After several weeks with Pape, Kovari announced he had found a room to rent in Barking. In August, Kovari moved out. On the day he moved out, Kovari had messaged another friend with a Google map pinpointing the location of his new home, Cook Street, Barking. Who lives on Cook Street?
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Port.
Mm-hmm.
When Kovari's body was found on the 28th of August, he was wearing sunglasses. His clothing was pulled up to reveal his midriff, just as Anthony Walgate's had been.
Weird.
John Pape, Kovari's ex-flatmate, and Thierry Amido, Kovari's ex-boyfriend, were contacted and informed of his death by police. They were both suspicious and started their own investigating, finding the similar death of Walgate a few months prior.
Yeah.
So in September, Amido, the ex, messaged someone called John Luck after noticing John had just started following Kavari on Facebook.
Mhm.
John expressed surprise on hearing Kavari had died and said they had spent 2 nights together around August 22nd.
Hmm.
He said Kavari had been collected from his home by an older Irish man called Tony.
Mhm.
And Tony had said Gabe went to a party with some guy called Dan. The following morning, John made a telling suggestion.
Mhm.
Maybe Dan knew what happened to Gabe and could not live with the guilt or something like that.
That was a text, was it?
I think it's over Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
So John is like, this guy called Tony took him from me, and then Dan took him from Tony. So
Mhm.
maybe Dan knows what
Mhm.
happened to Gabriel Cavari.
Yeah.
Had the police traced the person behind the John Luck Facebook account, they would have found
Stephen Porter.
Stephen Port.
Port, sorry, not Porter.
The Dan, whose death was linked to Gabriel Cavari, was 22-year-old Daniel Whitworth. Whitworth's body was found on the same spot as Cavari's, only hours after John Luck had first mentioned Dan. He was sitting against the graveyard wall on top of a blue bedsheet, the clothing on the top half of his body exposed his stomach, again like he had been dragged. His mobile phone was missing, and later tests showed that a small brown bottle found on his body contained GBH or GHB.
Really stupid to leave that bottle with him. I knew that's what
Like,
was in that bottle.
right?
Yeah.
His left hand contained an apparent suicide note. It claimed responsibility for the death of Gabriel. Okay, I wasn't going to read it,
Mhm.
but it is so. This is like so obviously not a suicide
I
note.
love
It's
suicide notes that are really crap.
it's so fake. This is the suicide note.
Mhm.
I am sorry to everyone, mainly my family, but I can't go on anymore. I took the life of my friend. We was just having some fun at a mate's place and I got carried away and gave him another shot of G. I didn't notice while we was having sex that he had stopped breathing. I tried everything to get him to breathe again, but it was too late. It was an accident. But I blame myself for what happened, and I didn't tell my family I went out. I know I would go to prison if I go to the police, and I can't do that to my family. And at least this way, I can at least be with Gabriel again. I hope he will forgive me. By the way, please do not blame the guy I was with last night. We only had sex, then I left. He knows nothing of what I have done. I have taken what G I have left with sleeping pills, so if it does kill me, it's what I deserve. Feeling dizzy now, as took 10 minutes ago, so hoping you understand my writing. I dropped my phone on way here, so it should be in the grass somewhere. Sorry to everyone. Love always, Daniel P.W.
So
It's
convoluted.
what?
Yeah.
I dropped my
I
phone, as
dropped
if
my
in a
phone.
suicide
Yeah.
note you'd include where you left your phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Very bizarre.
Those who knew Whitworth were appalled at the suggestion that he had killed someone, and they did not believe he had been suicidal. But the police, despite again seeking advice from a homicide assessment team, deemed the death to be non suspicious and accepted the note as face value.
Oh my gosh.
People always mention their mobile phones in the suicide note. The prosecution told Port's eventual trial that detectives neither fully investigated Whitworth's movements in the hours before his death nor tried to find the person referred to in his notes as the guy I was with last night.
Mhm.
Why would you mention the guy you were with last night if he has nothing to do with it?
Yeah. No, it just completely points to it. Yeah.
Ah,
It's yeah.
had they done so, it would have led them straight to Stephen Port.
You know,
Port's
they had so many
DNA
chances. Yeah.
Port's DNA was on the blue bed sheet on Whitworth's body. It was his
No.
bed sheet and on his clothes.
Oh,
Port's
stop.
DNA was on the sleeve that the note was found in. He like picked up his hand
Everywhere.
everywhere.
And did they have Stephen's DNA on file at this point?
Yes, that was my
Yeah,
next sentence.
that's what I
And
thought.
they
Yeah.
already had his
Yeah, because
DNA.
they'd already taken it by that point. Yeah.
Yeah, because he had been arrested for like Wallgate.
Mm-hmm. The
Yeah,
suspicious.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This has happened before where people have blamed suicide. You know, this isn't the first time that this has been pulled off of somebody setting up a crime and a suicide. It's not the first time. He just wrapped up a neat little package for them and they were just like, thank you very much. That's less work for us.
So he was arrested for perverting the course of justice. Then he was let out on bail until his court hearing. Then,
Mm-hmm.
while he was on bail, he
Mm-hmm.
killed
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel Cavari and Daniel Whitworth.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went and got sentenced to prison.
It's like he needed to get in those kills before he went away.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, while he was in prison, they had his DNA.
Yeah, it's so fucking stupid.
He was released in June 2015 after serving about 2 months. 2
What?
months.
Oh, so frustrating because they had him.
Jack Taylor was a 25-year-old from Dagenham. Taylor had several girlfriends and was not openly gay, but he used the dating app Grindr. Taylor left a local nightclub after a night of drinking and went home. And before 2, contacted Stephen Porter on Grindr. They decided to meet at 3
AM.
Yeah.
Just that sounds exhausting at that double life. Like, wow.
Within 36 hours, he was found dead. His body was propped against the other side of the graveyard wall
Oh,
from the
God.
spot where Gabriel Cavari and Daniel Whitworth were found, yards away from Stephen Cook's flat, where
Amazing.
Walgate died outside his flat.
Yeah, I mean, all this shit happening all around him.
His shirt was pulled up over his belly, no mobile phone was present, a syringe was in one pocket and a small brown bottle in the other. Police did not regard the death as suspicious
Oh, dear
and
God.
seemingly treated it as a self-inflicted overdose.
Okay.
Yep. The Taylor family did not accept the conclusion. They say they weren't contacted by police for nearly 2 weeks. Taylor's sister recalls, I think it was more there's another young boy, a druggie. I don't really think they cared at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what's coming across.
The family began their own investigation. The Taylor family, they found the other men who died in the same way, the same overdosing, the same place. They were both all gay, all the same age. While at the police station, they were told that CCTV footage existed of Jack Taylor walking down the street with a man in the early hours before his death. So the sisters were like, Taylor's sisters were like, you need to put this like out to the media. There's no way that my brother killed himself. In October 2015, the Met issued the CCTV footage. Police received several calls, but it was actually a police officer who realized the man in the video was someone they already knew.
Bum, bum, bum.
On the 15th of October 2015, Port was arrested at his flat on suspicion of causing the deaths of 4 young men. Port was interviewed over the following 4 days. His story about the death of Anthony Walgate was broadly repeated. He denied knowing the other dead men or ever using GHB. Port denied any further knowledge of Whitworth and the suicide note. On the 18th of October 2015, Port was charged with 4 counts of murder. Media coverage of his arrest brought 8 men forward who described being drugged or raped after meeting him online.
Wow, it's a lot of people.
The men's accounts were all similar. Port spiked their drinks or injected them with a small syringe. At his eventual trial, Port was convicted of a string of sexual offences against 7 of the men, including 4 counts of rape. A handwriting expert compared the suicide note with a sample of Daniel Whitworth's writing and confirmed he was not the author.
Yeah, I was thinking of that at the time. It's really ballsy to write a note on behalf of someone else. You don't know how they speak. You don't know, are they dyslexic? Maybe,
The police, whenever they got the suicide note, they sent snippets of the
mm,
note, small sections of the note, to his parents and said, "Does this look like his handwriting?" And they were like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, like, I don't know what your handwriting looks like."
no, that would be quite an old-fashioned thing to know what someone's handwriting looks like. To me, it's more you would need to see the full thing and read it the whole way through. Does that sound like that person? Do they use those type of words?
The
The longer the
manhunter.
note is, yeah, it's exactly like that. I mean, the longer the note is, the more you have to point things out. If it's a really super short note, then you're screwed, But it's not. It was quite a long note.
What was that called? Linguistic fingerprint or linguistic analysis?
Linguistic forensics.
The paper on which it was written and even the plastic sleeve in which it had been placed were from Port's flat.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Key items were covered in Port's DNA, including the blue sheet found on Daniel Whitworth. It was from Port's own bed. He was even lazy.
He wasn't even a good murderer,
The
yeah.
most incompetent police officers.
I don't know if it's even incompetence. It sounds like just not caring. It's a bit like Jack the Ripper and the prostitutes. It's like, well,
Police traced Tony, who turned out to be real, who John Luck had linked to Gabriel Covari and Daniel Whitworth, but found he had never even met Port nor any of the dead men. So this poor guy Tony was just like pulled into it.
Oh god.
What a dick. A mobile phone Port had once owned was found to contain 83 homemade sex videos, including clips of him and others having sex with an unconscious man.
Oh dear god.
The toupee he had worn for over a decade was
Stop.
gone.
Stop. Okay, the toupee is just too far.
This guy's like mugshot. He has like got this dome and he's got like cross-eyed but looking up cross-eyed.
Oh, I just watched Star Wars. He looks a little bit like Kylo Ren. Weird, he looks quite like him.
I have cut out a lot from this episode. There is like basically like a book on the BBC News.
Mm-hmm.
BBC is making a mini drama.
And they make very good shows. Like they will do it justice, I would say.
And it is Stephen Merchant is playing Stephen Port.
Is that who I'm thinking of?
The really tall Welsh guy who's friends with Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. I don't want him to
I
play him because he's so lovely.
know.
I can see the similarities though.
What?
Between like physical similarities.
Oh, right, because he's like tall and skinny and fair hair.
And kind of gingery fair hair. Yeah, that was crazy. Can't believe we didn't know about that.
I
Can't
know.
wait for the miniseries. I think it'll be really good and hopefully shine a light on the prejudices. Slán all you guys.
Bye.
Me Time and Murder would like to thank and acknowledge our sources that make this podcast possible.